In the 12th year of the Republic of China, Feng Qi, the seventh daughter of the Fengyang Security Bureau in County, Shandong, had reached the age of blooming youth. Among the many suitors knocking on their door, her parents selected the Bai family from De County. Master Bai had been a fourth-rank official in the previous dynasty. Though his official position no longer held power after the change of regime, his influence in De County was still formidable. In these tumultuous times, power was the ultimate security. Bai Chengsheng, the eldest son of the Bai family, had studied at a military academy in Japan from a young age. He had since returned to serve as an instructor at the Beiping Military Academy, where he was highly respected. Handsome and commanding, he exuded an aura of strength. Although Feng Qi had never met Bai Chengsheng, she had heard her sisters whispering about him in private, and she looked forward to her future with anticipation and hope. In the season of blooming tongue flowers, Feng Qi, adorned with a phoenix crown and a red wedding gown, her head covered by a red veil, swayed in a large sedan chair, making her way to the Bai family. Amidst the sound of firecrackers, the sedan came to a halt. Feng Qi's hands, which had been resting neatly on her lap, were suddenly grasped by a large hand. The unfamiliar strength and warmth sent her heart racing, throwing her thoughts into disarray. Guided by the force of the hand, Feng Qi lifted her dainty, embroidered shoe-clad foot to step out of the sedan. But the hand paused, then released her. A chill spread from her wrist to her heart. Feng Qi stood there, bewildered. Without the guiding hand, she didn't know what to do next. Her veil was thick, obscuring her vision, so she could only rely on her hearing. The deafening sound of firecrackers couldn't drown out the noise of people talking. Someone was questioning, someone was commanding, someone stormed off angrily, someone shouted, "Tie him up." Someone tried to intervene, and someone begged for mercy. The firecrackers abruptly ceased with a single cough, and the once noisy crowd fell silent. Feng Qi's heart leapt into her throat. Something bad had happened, and it involved her, she thought. Yet it seemed it didn't, as a deep, authoritative voice rang out. Today is a day of great celebration for the Bai family. Whoever dares speak out of turn will have to answer to me. Now, help the young madam out of the sedan so the ceremony can proceed. The voice was neither too loud nor too soft, neither hurried nor slow, neither humble nor overbearing, and it was even more commanding than her father, a seasoned escort leader. Feng Qi felt both comforted and a little afraid. A woman pleaded desperately, "Master, this matter requires further consideration. Ruisheng is still. Take the madam back to her room to rest." The same low, icy voice spoke, leaving no room for argument. Another hand came to support Feng Qi, though it was clearly not the same hand as before. Her anxiety only grew stronger. If they had already joined hands, why had he let go? But at least, the wedding was still continuing. Feng Qi was led to bow to the heavens and ancestors, hearing the laughter of children as she stepped down from the sedan. That laughter was all she could hear now. Moments ago, wasn't everyone still celebrating happily? What had happened? Feng Qi knelt on the ground for the couple's bow, filled with uncertainty. After the ceremony, Feng Qi was helped into the bridal chamber. The room was finally quiet, with only the sound of her maid's soft breathing and the faint fragrance of lilies lingering in the air. Lilies, 100 years of harmony. Feng Qi thought as she clutched her wrist, her cheeks flushed, recalling the strength of that hand. Feng Qi sat on the bridal bed for what felt like an eternity. Even with the red veil covering her head, she could sense that the sky was gradually darkening. The maid lit the red candles, their flickering shadows dancing across the room, making Feng Qi increasingly uneasy. Finally, the door creaked open and the maid called out, "Madam, young master." Feng Qi hurriedly pulled her drifting thoughts back, but before she could arrange a shy smile beneath her veil, it was already lifted. The dragon and phoenix candles, thick as an arm, blazed brightly, stinging her eyes. When she adjusted to the light, what she saw wasn't the handsome and dignified face she had imagined, but a pale, elegant woman holding a toddler, no more than 2 years old. The little boy, in one hand, held her red veil adorned with gold-threaded tassels, and with the other pointed at her, calling in a soft, innocent voice, "Sister, sister?" Feng-Chi couldn't help but smile at the sight of him, his chubby, fair figure dressed in a red belly band, with a shaved head like a child from a New Year's painting. However, Feng-Chi reminded herself of her status. She was the newlywed bride who hadn't yet shared the wedding wine with her husband. The veil should have been lifted by her husband's hand. She reached out, wanting the child to return her veil. The woman, in a soft voice, said, "It's already been lifted. Why cover it again? Once it's covered, it only blinds you to your own reality. Miss Feng, no one but Ruisheng will lift your veil tonight." There were traces of tears at the corner of the woman's eyes, and her calm, cold demeanor sent Feng-Chi into a panic. "Then, where is he?" "Bai Chengsheng? Forget about him. Today, the one you married and performed the ceremony with is him, your husband, Bai Ruisheng." The woman gently pushed the child forward. Feng-Chi's face turned pale with shock. Forgetting all manners, she sprang to her feet and pointed accusingly at the woman, shouting, "Who are you to speak such nonsense? I am the newlywed wife of the Bai family, and I married the eldest son, Bai Chengsheng." The little boy, startled by her sudden outburst, burst into tears. A wet nurse hurriedly stepped in, pulling out her breast and swiftly quieting the child by nursing him. Feng-Chi blushed deeply, her almond-shaped eyes filling with tears of humiliation. The woman waved her hand dismissively. "Nanny, take the young master back to his room. I need to speak with the young madam." "Yes, madam." The wet nurse respectfully withdrew. Feng-Chi was stunned. Before her wedding, she had only known that the current madam of the Bai family was a second wife, but she hadn't expected her to be so young. On Feng-Chi's wedding night, the second wife of the Bai family revealed that Bai Chengsheng, the man Feng-Chi had originally been meant to marry, had run away. "What did I do wrong?" Feng-Chi bit her lip, refusing to let her tears fall. The madam handed her a silk handkerchief. "You've done nothing wrong. The fault lies with this chaotic world." Feng-Chi didn't understand. The madam sighed softly. "The eldest young master is a modern, progressive man. He agreed to this marriage because he heard that your father is a bold and righteous man, and your sisters are all strong, independent women. But the moment he saw your bound feet, he was deeply disappointed and changed his mind." "That was not my choice." Feng-Chi cried silently in her heart. Her father had 7 daughters. The first 6 had been raised like boys, with unbound feet. But when it came to her, he suddenly decided that the Bai family needed a proper lady to uphold their reputation. So, Feng-Chi had been forced to bind her feet, learning all the arts and skills of a traditional woman. Her father could never have predicted that while his first 6 daughters married off smoothly, his precious 7th daughter would be abandoned before she even stepped out of the sedan. Feng-Chi clenched her lips tightly. "Where is he now?" The madam lowered her gaze. "The master locked him in the study, but he escaped. No one knows where he is now, and the family is still searching for him." Feng-Chi's heart sank. After a moment, she steadied herself and said, "In that case, please send me back to the Feng family." "Miss Feng, give up on that idea. Now that you've married into the Bai family, there's no going back," the madam said, her voice as calm as water. Feng-Chi hurriedly argued, "But he left. We haven't even truly married. You've worn the bridal gown, sat in the sedan, and completed the ceremony. You are now a married woman. A married daughter is like water spilled out of a basin. You can't return. But with the eldest young master gone, what am I to do here?" The madam looked her in the eye, speaking slowly and deliberately. "The eldest young master may be gone, but the second young master remains. I've already made it clear. Today, the one who married you, the one who lifted your veil, was Bai Ruisheng. But he's a child. He's not even weaned yet. How can he be my husband?" Feng-Chi's face turned ashen, her words jumbled. The madam rose to her feet. "A child will grow up, This was the master's decision, and no one can defy him. Both the Bai and Feng families care about their reputation. I'm sure your parents see no better solution. So, you might as well settle in and accept your role as the second young madam. The madam forced herself to finish these words, then left in a hurry before Feng Qi could respond. Only when she was far away did she tearfully instruct the servants. Take good care of the second young madam, and if there's the slightest mistake, beware of the master's wrath. Feng Qi cried all night before finally stopping. The madam let out a sigh of relief. Women, aren't they all like this? When their marriage isn't what they hoped for, they feel like the sky is falling. They cry as if their hearts are breaking, but once they're tired and fall asleep, they accept their fate the next day. After all, such is the life of a woman. The madam looked at her sleeping husband beside her. He was over 50, and though he tried to hide it, his age was undeniable. His usually tight lips now sagged in his sleep, occasionally letting out thunderous snores. At times, his breath would stop suddenly, leaving him gasping for air, which startled her so much that her heart ached. She had lived through such days for 3 years now. Even though she couldn't save her mother's life, at least she had provided her with a proper burial and a respectable funeral. This life, what more could she expect? With a deep sigh, the madam wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. Just as she closed her eyes to rest, she was jolted awake by the frantic cries of a maid. Help! Something terrible has happened. The young madam, the second young madam, is missing. The madam quickly sat up, hurriedly throwing on her coat. Her husband was woken up too, his face filled with anger. He roared at the servants, "Go find her. I want her alive or dead. Once she's entered the Bai family, she belongs to us." A chill ran down the madam's spine as she recalled the hardship she endured in the past, and she feared that the same fate would befall Feng Qi, that young girl. Feng Qi hadn't run far. First, because her bound feet slowed her down, and second, because she had no idea where to go. Blindfolded under the wedding veil, she hadn't seen the way to the Bai family home. When Feng Qi was brought back to the Bai residence, the sky had not yet brightened. The red candles had burned out, and the wedding chamber was cold and empty. Inside, the madam sat solemnly, waiting. Feng Qi collapsed to her knees in front of the madam. "Please, I beg you, let me go back home. I don't want to be a child bride. I want to go home and see my parents. Please, madam." The madam's expression was as calm as still water. "You are not a child bride. You are the Bai family's second young madam, properly married. The master does not like people spreading rumors, so remember to speak carefully from now on. And let me warn you, I can only save you this once. The master will not give me a second chance. You can either wait patiently for your husband to grow up, or face being beaten to death. The choice is yours." Feng Qi steeled her heart. "I would rather hang myself from the phoenix tree than marry a toddler." "Fine," the madam replied coldly. "But be prepared for your parents to cry for you every day, and for your father's security business to shut down. If that's what you want, go ahead and try." The madam's words, as cold as ice water in the dead of winter, poured over Feng Qi's heart, extinguishing any hope she had left. Feng Qi knelt there in despair, having forgotten how to cry. For an entire day, Feng Qi refused to eat or drink, trying to starve herself. The madam didn't try to stop her. According to custom, on the third day after the wedding, she prepared lavish gifts and had Bai Ruisheng accompany Feng Qi for her homecoming visit. Bai Ruisheng, acting like a little adult, respectfully bowed and greeted Feng Qi's parents when they arrived at her home. Feng Qi was shocked to see how disciplined and well-mannered he was. It was clear he had been meticulously taught. "Oh, no need for such formalities. Please sit," Feng Qi's mother said, though her face betrayed her nervousness. She wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry at the sight of her new son-in-law, who was still just a toddler. Her father, on the other hand, found an excuse to leave soon after ordering the servants to prepare a banquet. Feng Qi asked someone to take Bai Ruisheng outside to watch the fish in the garden, then stood there silently, facing her mother. Her mother, trying to avoid her gaze, finally broke the silence. The second young master seems bright and clever. When he grows up, he'll be just fine. This marriage is a blessing from the heavens. Mother, do you truly expect me to marry a child who hasn't even been weaned yet? Feng Qi bluntly asked. Her mother's shoulders trembled. My dear, you are your father and I's precious daughter. How could we have known that this marriage would turn out this way? Your father was furious when he found out that Bai Chengsheng ran away. He's searching everywhere for him, hoping to bring him back and make amends. Am I really just an outcast now? Is there truly no place for me in the Feng family anymore? Have I become such a disgrace that even father won't acknowledge me? Feng Qi held back her tears, her voice trembling with sorrow. Her mother's expression changed. Oh, my child, don't say such things about your father. He feels guilty and ashamed. That's why he can't face you. Your father, and I wish we could bring you back home. But if you return now, you'll be branded a discarded woman. How will you hold your head high in the future? Then what do you and father want me to do? Your parents-in-law are reasonable people. When the eldest young master ran away, they made the swift decision to have Ruisheng marry you instead. Even though he's still young, he is, after all, a proper young master of the Bai family. With the world as it is now, the Bai family is a safe harbor. There are many who would give anything to marry into that family. You must count your blessings. The madam's cold words echoed in Feng Qi's mind. The Bai and Feng families care about their reputations. Your parents probably don't have a better solution than this. That icy tone, strangely, helped Feng Qi regain her calm. Her sisters soon arrived, eager to meet their new brother-in-law. Their husbands, seeing that Ruisheng was just a child, didn't hold back and teasingly asked if he had touched Feng Qi's bound feet yet. Furious, Feng Qi pointed at the group of men and shouted, Listen carefully. This is my husband, the Bai family's second young master. How dare you mock him? If you insult him again, you'll be making enemies of the Bai family and you'll regret it. After that, Feng Qi quickly took Ruisheng and left. Ruisheng was tired and hungry, having lost the dignity he had shown earlier when meeting his in-laws. On the way home, he nestled into his nursemaid's arms, seeking comfort. Seeing the look on Feng Qi's face, the nursemaid tried to soothe him. Young master, we're almost home. Please be patient a little longer. With a sigh, Feng Qi said bitterly, It's fine. He's been through a lot today. Go ahead and feed him. Let him sleep. Feng Qi returned to the Bai residence and dutifully went to the main hall to pay her respects to the master and madam. The master was pleased with her humble and obedient demeanor. The madam sent her silks and fabrics and instructed the kitchen to prepare the dishes Feng Qi liked. Life seemed peaceful, but every time she woke in the dead of night, Feng Qi would hold her wrist and silently weep. There had once been a hand that should have held hers as they entered this house together. But now, here she was, while that person was nowhere to be found. During the day, Ruisheng often clung to her. Although she had her reservations, she genuinely grew fond of the child, and they became closer. The madam, with a heavy heart, decided to wean Ruisheng, causing him to cry endlessly. Feng Qi asked the wet nurse, Isn't it customary to wean a child at 3 years old? The wet nurse wiped her tears and said, It should be, but the madam said that since the second young master now has a wife, it's improper for him to continue nursing in front of her. Feeling sorry for Ruisheng, Feng Qi went to plead with the madam. It's my unfortunate fate. Why make him suffer? Madam, please release me. The Bai family has never had a woman leave, only women who die of illness. Don't say such things again. Whether marrying Ruisheng brings him fortune or misfortune, he will decide in the future. With the current unrest in the world, even in this large household, we all live in constant fear. The master is aging. When he's gone, with you here, I'll have someone to rely on, and Ruisheng will have another to look after him. Besides, Ruisheng is fond of you, even more so than me. The madam grasped Feng Qi's hand earnestly. Feng Qi hesitated. But I'm 15 years older than him. By the time he grows up, I'll be a worn-out old woman. It's unfair to both of us. The madam replied, the world is ever-changing. No one can predict what will happen. It's too soon to decide what's fair or unfair. You're 15 years older than your husband. I'm 35 years younger than mine. This is fate. Fairness doesn't come into it. Madam, Feng Qi looked up in shock, confused as to how someone so young had become the second wife of the elderly by master. Seeing her confusion, the madam explained, it's ironic. You were abandoned for your bound feet, while I was ridiculed for my natural feet. My father, influenced by modern education, was against foot binding and gave me a Western education. But fate is fickle. My father died unexpectedly in the war, leaving me as my mother's only hope and support. My mother wanted to find me a respectable marriage, but my unbound feet became a stumbling block. Small families couldn't afford to support both my mother and me, and large families saw me as unrefined. When my mother fell seriously ill, she sought help from a relative who ran a clinic. The relative asked if I was willing to become someone's second wife in exchange for my mother's medical expenses and lifelong care. I gritted my teeth and agreed. After marrying into the Bai family, I discovered that my husband was far wealthier than I had imagined, but he was also far older. I regretted it and tried to run away, but I was caught twice and punished severely. The Bai family's old servant told me that if I truly wanted to escape, there was only one way out, and my mother would inevitably follow me down that path. I was terrified, and that's how I became the madam you see before you. Feng Qi had thought her fate was cruel, but she hadn't expected the woman before her to have suffered even more, yet still protect her with all her might. Unable to hold back her tears, Feng Qi's clothes were soon soaked. Madam, I'm sorry. I wronged you. The madam patted her hand gently. We may not control our fate, but we must learn to protect ourselves. Surviving is the key. Ruisheng may be young, but he's been my source of hope these past few years. Think of him as your younger brother for now. When he grows up, he'll be able to protect you. Feng Qi nodded deeply. Madam, I understand. 7 days later, Bai Ruisheng was fully weaned, and the wet nurse's duty was fulfilled. Ruisheng threw tantrums, insisting on sleeping in Feng Qi's room. The madam had no choice but to ask the master for permission. The usually strict Bai master simply said, he's just a child. Let him be. Perhaps the master felt guilty for the child too. The eldest young master had fled, and this innocent boy had been thrust into the role of husband without understanding a thing. It was indeed unfair. From then on, every night Ruisheng would clutch Feng Qi's smooth hair and sleep soundly. Feng Qi spent the nights covering him with blankets or waking him to go to the bathroom, unable to get a full night's sleep herself, leaving her no time to think about that other hand. Thus, this odd couple, whose combined age didn't even total 20, became yet another bizarre and laughable pairing in these chaotic times. In 1929, 8-year-old Bai Ruisheng came running home from school, yelling, Feng Qi, is there anything to eat? Feng Qi walked out of the house, scolding him. You come home asking for food right away. Were you studying or running wild? I made some date flour cakes. They're under the sieve in the house. Go wash your hands and eat. Ruisheng, without even washing his hands, rushed into the house, grabbed the cakes, and stuffed them into his school bag. Seeing this, Feng Qi hurried to stop him. Oh dear, what are you doing? These delicious date cakes are for eating, not for shoving into your school bag. Ruisheng blinked his eyes and said, There are so many beggars outside, all skin and bones. They said they fled from Baoji, and there are children too. I need to hurry and give them something to eat, or they might starve to death. Feng Qi's heart tightened. The newspapers had reported years of drought in Shaanxi, with rivers like the Jing, Wei, Han, and Bao running dry. Crops had failed, and over 1 million people had starved to death. These people from Baoji had begged their way to Dexian. It was a miracle they were still alive. Feng Qi sent someone to accompany Ruisheng, taking not just the date cakes, but also some other snacks and steamed buns to feed the refugees outside. It was a long time before Ruisheng returned, looking dejected and heavy-hearted. Feng Qi asked the servant what had happened, and he replied, "It's those starving refugees." After eating, they refused to leave and kept telling the young master about the thousands dying of hunger. He must have been frightened. "I'm not scared. I just feel sorry for those who died. What did they do wrong?" Ruisheng said loudly. Feng Qi quickly explained that it was a natural disaster, affecting not just Shaanxi, but 8 northern provinces. Even Dexian had a poor harvest this year. People were struggling to survive, and even the wealthy families were rationing their food, stretching what they had to make it through the famine. "Our granary is full of wheat and corn. Why can't we use it to save their lives?" Ruisheng said earnestly. Feng Qi was stunned. Ruisheng had the same compassionate heart as his mother, unable to bear seeing others suffer. But large households had their own difficulties. Last year, the Bai family had reduced their rent collections by half. And this year, they hadn't collected a cent, with dozens of mouths to feed. Every bite counted. Feng Qi turned Ruisheng towards her. "The Bai family's food supply is limited too. Even the Lord and Lady are eating coarser grains now. We have to survive as well. I can eat coarse grains too and eat less. We should save food to save lives," Ruisheng said resolutely. Feng Qi looked at him, troubled. Ruisheng, in a huff, stomped his foot. "You're my wife. How dare you not listen to me?" Feng Qi couldn't help but laugh, tugging him to the main hall to let him present his case to the Lord and Lady. The lady remained silent, while the Lord stroked his beard, thinking for a moment before saying, "Let's do as you suggest. Keep 2 years' worth of rations and distribute the rest to the refugees. Write a notice and post it at the gate. Tomorrow, we'll open the granary. Saving lives can't wait." Ruisheng was overjoyed. The Lord then added, "After distributing the grain, dismiss all the servants we can spare. Give them money or food if necessary." The lady nodded solemnly. "Yes, my lord." That night, 2 large households in Dexian were raided, their granaries emptied by dawn. It was said that the perpetrators were none other than those refugees from Baoji. By day, they looked frail and weak, but by night, they turned into ravenous wolves, their eyes gleaming at the sight of food. The Bai family, however, remained untouched. Some said it was due to their tight security, while others credited the fear of the Lord's influence. But Feng Qi believed it was Ruisheng's gesture of sharing his date cakes and the notice about opening the granary that had saved them. The next night, Ruisheng, who had moved out to sleep on his own, lingered in Feng Qi's room until late. Eventually, he asked to sleep there. Feng Qi blushed, knowing that Ruisheng now understood the boundaries between men and women. He simply asked the maid to bring a grass mat and bedding, laying them on the floor. "Mother has father to protect her, and I'll protect you." It was then that Feng Qi remembered the lady's words. "Treat him as your younger brother. When he grows up, he'll protect you." In the 26th year of the Republic of China, Bai Ruisheng returned home in a modern military uniform, his face full of anger. Feng Qi asked him what had happened, but he pushed her aside and hurriedly ran toward the main hall. Feng Qi, sensing the seriousness of the situation, grew anxious. This day had finally come. Feng Qi didn't know exactly what Bai Ruisheng had said to the master and madam, but she could hear the master's furious roars echoing through the halls. Afterward, Bai Ruisheng stormed out in a rage, never once looking back, and did not return again. The madam came to comfort Feng Qi, explaining that the master wanted Bai Ruisheng to enlist in the military. But Bai Ruisheng insisted on finishing his studies first and becoming a teacher. The two had reached an impasse, and Bai Ruisheng, in frustration, moved into the school dormitories. With her eyes downcast, Feng Qi said, "Madam, I should leave the Bai family. Ruisheng is grown now." The madam grabbed her hand, saying, "It's chaotic out there. Where could you go all by yourself? Don't worry, let me think of something. We'll figure something out. Feng Qi knew the madam was just as anxious as she was, and the master was even more so. After all, their eldest son, Bai Qingsheng, had run away to avoid an arranged marriage and never returned. Now Bai Ruisheng had left in anger, too. The master was in his 70s. How could he not fear being left alone in his old age? That very night, the master had a stroke and was left paralyzed. Feng Qi, who had already packed her belongings, found herself unable to leave. With no servants left in the household and the madam alone, how could she possibly hold the crumbling family together? For 2 years, the master remained bedridden until finally, he passed away. Feng Qi begged a neighbor to deliver a message to Bai Ruisheng at his school, asking him to come home for a final farewell. When the master saw his son, a faint glimmer of light appeared in his cloudy eyes. He shakily retrieved a pair of jade pendants in the shape of twin fish from beneath his pillow, placing one in Bai Ruisheng's hand and the other in Feng Qi's. He then pointed at Feng Qi, then at Bai Ruisheng, tears streaming down his old, withered face. Feng Qi's heart ached at the sight. The master had once told her, Ruisheng is kind-hearted but lacks foresight and cunning. In these turbulent times, you must help him keep the family together, or he will face poverty and ruin. The master passed away. Bai Ruisheng knelt before the coffin for hours, refusing to rise despite everyone's pleas. Feng Qi prepared a simple meal of tomato soup with egg flowers floating on the surface, a few drops of sesame oil adding fragrance. This was the same sour yet fragrant dish she used to make for Bai Ruisheng when he was a child and refused to eat, a dish that had helped him grow healthy and strong. Tears streamed down Bai Ruisheng's face as he drank the soup in one gulp. With red eyes, he said, "It's my fault. I angered my father to death." Feng Qi gently took the empty bowl and, along with it, placed the jade pendant back into his hand. "You didn't do anything wrong. You were only 2 years old then. You were just as much a victim. Now that the master has passed, let's let the past rest. From now on, remember to visit the madam often." Bai Ruisheng asked, "Feng Qi, what really happened back then? I was only 2 years old. Why did my parents rush to marry me off? I know you were forced into it. You didn't want this, did you?" Feng Qi nodded. "Yes, I didn't want it. I still don't." Bai Ruisheng shook his head. "No, that's not right.
Does my family owe you something?"
Why else would my father push for us to consummate the marriage before he fell ill?" Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't supposed to know the truth of what happened all those years ago, nor should he bear the consequences. "Ruisheng, you're overthinking this. The Bai family owes me nothing. I was just a child bride, no different from a maid." "Nonsense. You are the daughter of the prestigious Feng family. How could you have been sold as a child bride? If you were truly just that, why would my father give you the emperor's jade pendant?" Bai Ruisheng's sharp gaze locked onto Feng Qi. At some point, the madam had quietly entered the room. She coldly remarked, "The Bai family owes her 16 years of her youth, all of which she spent caring for you." A gust of wind blew through the hall, causing the candles by the altar to flicker wildly. Feng Qi suddenly recalled the swaying candles from her wedding night. Someone entered the room, and Feng Qi felt a chill run down her spine. She turned to see a face she did not recognize. But it was true, just as her older sisters had said all those years ago. He was imposing, with an air of cold authority. His military uniform and boots exuded an icy aura, and his eyes were as sharp as blades, intimidating to behold. Bai Ruisheng stood up, a mixture of surprise and excitement in his eyes. The madam, her lips trembling, finally said, "You're too late." The man's gaze swept from the madam to Bai Ruisheng, and then to Feng Qi. Feng Qi instinctively stepped back. He walked forward, knelt before the altar, and solemnly kowtowed to the master. As Feng Qi watched his large, calloused hands, she wondered which one had once held hers. "Are you my brother?" Bai Ruisheng hesitantly asked. The man nodded. Ruishing, you've grown so much." Feng Qi quietly left the morning hall and locked herself in her room, the very same room where she had spent her wedding night. The furnishings hadn't changed, but the joy was long gone, leaving only a cold emptiness. Bai Ruishing knocked on the door. "Feng Qi, Mother wants to talk to you in the main hall." "I'm tired. We can talk tomorrow," Feng Qi replied, her voice shaky with panic. After a moment of silence, Bai Ruishing knocked again. "Feng Qi, why are you avoiding my brother? Have you met him before?" "No, I've never met him. Ruishing, go keep vigil for the master. We'll talk later." As Bai Ruishing's footsteps faded, Feng Qi sat by the bed, her tears falling like rain. She had thought she would never see him again, never again hold that hand. She had thought that with the master gone, she would finally be free to leave the Bai family, but fate had other plans, so unpredictable and cruel. The next day, Bai Chengsheng and Bai Ruishing, the two brothers, laid their father to rest. Upon returning home, Tai Jian instructed Feng Qi to prepare a few dishes. The four of them sat around the table, the air so thick with tension it was suffocating. Clearing her throat, Tai Jian said, "Now that the old master is gone, it's just the four of us left. It's time we cleared up any misunderstandings or gaps between us. Feng Qi, pour a cup of wine for the eldest young master." Feng Qi hesitated for a moment and glanced at Ruishing. Bai Chengsheng stood up with his wine cup in hand. "There's no need. I will pour for you. Tai Jian, second young madam, I, Bai Chengsheng, have wronged you both and the Bai family. This first cup is my apology." He drained the wine in one go. "The second cup is to thank you both for caring for my father and raising my younger brother for the past decade." He downed another cup. "The third cup, Tai Jian." "Eldest young master, let me say something first," Tai Jian interrupted him, her tone grave. "Feng Qi has been in the Bai family for 16 years, wearing down her hands and exhausting her heart. And back then you..." She trailed off, and Feng Qi's heart jumped into her throat. Suddenly, Ruishing stood up, his voice urgent. "Mother, brother, I need to head back to school. You two can continue talking." Tai Jian wanted to say more, but Ruishing took the jade pendant from his chest and placed it in Feng Qi's palm. "Father gave this to you. Take good care of it. I'll be back the day after tomorrow, and when I return, make me a bowl of soup." Without waiting for a reply, Ruishing rushed out the door. Bai Chengsheng glanced at Feng Qi and then at Tai Jian before excusing himself as well. Tai Jian sat there motionless for a long time. Feng Qi quietly gathered the dishes, returned to her room, and lay down. Ruishing's parting words echoed in her mind until she eventually drifted off to sleep. When she awoke, it was already dark. Feng Qi went to check on Tai Jian, wondering if she needed a late-night snack, but when she reached the room, the light was on, yet no one was inside. Feng Qi wandered the courtyard until she heard noises from the study. Could it be that Ruishing had returned? She approached the window, only to hear an unfamiliar voice. The voice said, "You released me from this house back then, and now you want me to come back and give her an explanation. What exactly are you thinking? I saw you were trapped and just wanted to help. I acted without considering the consequences," Tai Jian's voice responded. Feng Qi covered her mouth in shock. The man snorted coldly. "You're overthinking things. Father never intended for me to marry a girl when I was under 2 years old. It was just a cover to save face. Did you actually believe it?" "I had no choice but to believe it. With your father's temper, do you think he would have let Feng Qi go and admitted his failings as a parent?" Tai Jian countered. Even if she had to die within the walls of the Bai family, he would never have allowed her to marry into another family. Bai Chengsheng paused. "I despise myself for not having the courage to take you and run away back then. If I had, you wouldn't have been dragged back time and again, and none of this would have happened." "I called you back not for me," Tai Jian said, her voice softening, "but to take Feng Qi with you. Ruishing has grown up. He hasn't come home for 2 years because he refused to consummate the marriage with Feng Qi. Now that the old master is gone, he's even less likely to return. She's a respectable young lady from a wealthy family who has wasted 16 years of her life here. How can I let her end up homeless, without a place to go? At that moment, Feng Qi felt her entire world collapse around her. So it turned out that Bai Chengsheng had once helped Tai Jian escape, that it was Tai Jian who had let him go on the day of her own wedding, that she had always known where Bai Chengsheng was, and that now he had returned to take her away.
But how could that be?
Tai Jian was his stepmother and had given him a younger brother. How could he take Tai Jian away and explain it to Ruisheng? In the study, the two continued arguing. Naturally, Bai Chengsheng refused to take Feng Qi with him. He said, "Father is gone now. I'll talk to Ruisheng. If he's willing to marry Feng Qi for real, the family estate will belong to the two of them. If not, they can split it evenly between them. A young master who was adopted and a wife who never consummated her marriage. They wouldn't be losing out. Chengsheng, you must never speak of this again, not even on your deathbed. Since I adopted Ruisheng, he is my own son." Tai Jian cut him off, her voice trembling with urgency. Feng Qi felt the world spinning around her as she stumbled back to her room. "Ruisheng, oh Ruisheng, it turns out that neither of us has anything to do with this Bai family. Why would the heavens bind us to this cursed fate, ruining both you and me?" Before dawn, Feng Qi packed a couple of changes of clothes and left the Bai family estate. On the steps, she saw someone sitting, and her heart nearly stopped. It was Bai Chengsheng. When he saw her, he rasped, "Where are you going?" Feng Qi stammered, unable to form a reply. Bai Chengsheng said coldly, "I've come by Tai Jian's orders to take you to the northeast. Come with me." "You." Feng Qi was at a loss for words. Tai Jian had convinced him, after all, which showed just how much she meant to him. The two stood in silence for a long time before he stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. "Come with me." His grip seemed stronger than before, but the warmth was gone, likely drained away by the cold night air. Feng Qi's heart trembled as she yanked her hand away. "Let me go. I'm not going with you. I'm going to the academy to see Ruisheng." "What did you say? Say that again." He froze, his voice laced with fury. Perhaps in his mind, she should have been grateful and obedient, thankful for his mercy and pity. She stood there, instinctively rubbing her sore wrist, and said each word clearly. "I'm not going with you. You'll regret this?" Feng Qi has lived her life with no regrets. As the sky brightened, Bai Chengsheng seemed to see the determination and indifference in her eyes. He clenched his teeth, turned, and walked away. Feng Qi watched his retreating figure and thought, 16 years ago, he must have walked away just like this, without looking back. "Feng Qi," Tai Jian called from the steps of the house. "Ruisheng will return tomorrow. You don't need to go to the academy. Just wait for him at home. And don't forget to buy a few ripe tomatoes when the vegetable seller comes by." Feng Qi stood at the doorway, looking at her from afar. The once grand Bai family estate now felt empty and desolate, with only two women left behind, women whom Bai Chengsheng couldn't take away. Feng Qi had prepared a simple noodle soup, reheating it over and over again, but Bai Ruisheng still hadn't come home. Tai Jian, like her, was restless and uneasy, her right eyelid twitching constantly. As evening deepened, the two finally decided to go out and look for him. He wasn't the type to break a promise, and even if he'd had a change of heart, he would have returned to explain himself. Bai Ruisheng was in the hospital, injured from a fight.
Why?
Why would you get into a fight? You've always been the most peaceful person, never looking for trouble. How could you break someone's nose? Feng Qi paced the hospital room, wringing her hands anxiously. Bai Ruisheng smiled. "I was in a hurry to get home for soup, and he got in my way." Feng Qi paused, realizing, "Oh, you've reminded me. You must be hungry. I'll go back and make some soup and bring it here for you." Feng Qi, Bai Ruisheng, only 18 years old, called out to his older wife, "I'm not badly hurt. No need to stay in the hospital. You and mother can help me back home." Taijian said nothing but nodded. She had already heard what happened. Someone had stopped Ruisheng on the road, telling him about Bai Qingxing's return and the events of the past, which led him to lose his temper and fight. Bai Qingxing left after that, never to return. Feng Qi never asked Taijian if there was any news of him. In those chaotic, war-torn years, the Feng family had scattered, with no contact between its members. Only Bai Ruisheng stayed behind, teaching at Dexian High School and looking after the Bai family, Taijian, and Feng Qi. In 1941, on a snowy night, Bai Ruisheng came home after drinking with friends. Feng Qi brought him a bowl of noodle soup spiced with pepper to warm him and sober him up. After drinking the soup, Feng Qi collected the dishes and was about to leave when Bai Ruisheng, in his drunken haze, grabbed her hand. "Feng Qi, the Bai family owes you, and I will repay it." The next year, under the shade of the Wudong trees, 36-year-old Feng Qi gave birth to their first son. Bai Ruisheng named him Bai Ju. The following year, Feng Qi had a second son, Bai Jun. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, Feng Qi gave birth to two daughters, Bai Feng and Bai He. The Bai family's fields were divided, but they still had enough land to feed themselves. They were fortunate, never facing the hardships of displacement. Taijian passed away shortly after Bai He's 1-month celebration, taking the secret that Ruisheng was adopted with her to the grave. Feng Qi and Ruisheng sold grain to give her respectable burial. Throughout his life, Bai Ruisheng enjoyed a leisurely existence under Feng Qi's care. She handled everything, from managing the household to raising 4 children, while he focused solely on teaching. Feng Qi, having borne the weight of both the household and the farm work, became hardened. She even learned to scold, transforming into what some might call a village shrew. The children often complained about her temper, but Bai Ruisheng simply smiled, accepting her scolding and even her occasional slaps without protest. During the Great Famine, with no grain left in the house, Feng Qi would walk 30 miles at night, pulling a cart to haul bricks from the kiln. She earned a pittance, just enough to buy cornmeal and mix it with dried vegetable leaves to make steamed dumplings for the family to eat. Her tiny bound feet were often rubbed raw, leaving them bloodied. Despite the hardship and quarrels, the family survived that grueling time. Both sons joined the military and rose to mid-level ranks, while both daughters followed in their father's footsteps, becoming teachers. Bai Ruisheng's later years were even more peaceful. On summer evenings, he would set up a small table and stool at the entrance of the house, placing ice-cold watermelon and freshly brewed tea for passers-by to rest, chat, and share strange tales. Feng Qi, now a grandmother, would often scold him in front of their grandchildren. "Feeding and serving everyone, you'll never stop being such a fool." One summer evening in 1990, an old man with silver hair and a long beard drank a cup of Bai Ruisheng's tea and told him the story of Xue Li's Eastern campaign. Bai Ruisheng, smiling, fanned himself leisurely, and as he listened, he drifted off to sleep. Night deepened, and dew began to settle. Feng Qi went out to call him back to bed, only to find that his body had gone cold. In his left hand, resting on his leg, lay the fish-shaped jade pendant. Feng Qi, who had never shed a tear in her life, shook his arm and cried like a wronged child. "Bai Ruisheng, oh Bai Ruisheng, you heartless man. You forget that when I married you, you hadn't even weaned yet. You said you'd take care of me when you grew up, so how could you be so cruel and leave me first?"